Welcome to Rise with the Sun, and I'm Conrad Chua. This is my series where every week on the weekend, when the sun rises here, wherever I am, and I'm here in Cambridge, United Kingdom, I share my thoughts about business, tech, and society, focusing on one of those key stories that came up in the last couple of weeks. Today, I want to talk about Apple's C1 modem chip, which debuted in the iPhone 16e, but really think about the larger context of vertical integration versus modularity. So stick around. And if you're watching this live on YouTube or LinkedIn, you can pop any comments or questions and I'll try to answer them. So vertical integration occurs when a company controls multiple stages of its value chain, such as production, distribution, or retail. And in Apple's case, they are a company that's notoriously very obsessive about controlling their user experience through vertical integration. We can think about it in terms of how they like to do things in-house with their hardware, with their operating system on the software side, on the design, but also even down to things like retail, right? They have their own retail stores, the Apple stores, where you can walk in, you can see their products, you can speak to someone. If you've got a problem or you've got questions, you can speak to what they call an Apple Genius or something, the Genius Bar, right? And that's all down to their aim of trying to control the user experience by bringing most things in-house. Now, when you have that vertical integration, you obviously done it so that you want to get some increased efficiency, maybe great performance and control. But vertical integration has trade-offs. It reduces that kind of flexibility. It means that you're banking on your own in-house capabilities to be as good or better than what you could buy from an external vendor. Right? And that's the case for modularity, where you want to get design and build stuff so that there's things that you can bring in, more standardized components that you can bring in from external suppliers. And this approach allows companies to adapt quickly to market changes, reduce costs maybe by outsourcing certain components, and then it allows them to focus on their own areas of expertise. Now, there's a pendulum swing, as in many things, in industries, going from more vertical integration to more modularity. If you think back to late 80s, 90s, 2000s, really the pendulum was much more to modularity. And Apple's market share of the computing market, which was at the time pretty much all desktops and then laptops, was shrinking because it was on the wrong side of that pendulum swing. It was the victory of the Wintel model. And things changed when the iPhone first came out. And Apple designed, obviously, its own operating system, its iOS, its own app store, distribution, but also they decided they wanted to do their own chip design, and they went with ARM, and that's when they had the A series chips. And that followed on into their desktops and laptops later on. It took them much longer. It was only, almost 15 years after the iPhone first came out that they could get away from Intel to their own M series chips for their desktops and laptops, and that proved tremendously successful because then they were no longer subservient or waiting for Intel's roadmap. Intel would design all these chips. They didn't design it just for Apple. They would think they had to go to all their other customers, figure out all these different priorities, and figure out, okay, what kind of chip would cater to the biggest market range. And then Intel also ran into all these roadblocks because they were really at that time going down this technological cul-de-sac, right? Their chips were getting hotter, taking up more energy, and not delivering that kind of performance, which was really critical when you think about a laptop or even a desktop. And so Apple, in 2000, they've reached a point where the chips that they were using on the mobile devices were powerful enough to, with certain modifications, come into a laptop and a desktop. And that's actually what I'm using right now. I've got an M1 MacBook Pro. It's been 5 years almost, and it works like a charm. It's still really fast, takes up no energy. Battery life is great, right? Quiet, it doesn't need the power, doesn't need a fan to cool it down. Now, that's on the processing side, but there's more in a phone or even a laptop than a processor. A very important component is the modem. And in one of those low-key announcements, Apple launched their iPhone 16e, which is supposed to be their budget phone. I'll talk a bit more about whether that's what budget really means now to Apple in a subsequent episode. But buried in all these announcements about its features, etc., was the fact that Apple, for the very, very first time, had its own modem chip. Now, the modem is a very important component of your smartphone. It is the chip that will get the data from your cellular network, download it or upload whatever data, if you're thinking of uploading photos, Instagram, whatever, right? That is the chip that will control that data flow. It is also the chip that takes up quite a lot of power, right? And hence it reduces your battery life if the chip is not efficient enough. So Apple has been, it's been no secret, Apple has wanted to really hone in on this part of the phone and take control. The problem is the one company that does the vast majority of these very high-end modem chips is Qualcomm. And Qualcomm owns loads of patents. They license a lot of the technology, and Apple, like many of the other smartphone manufacturers, have relied a lot on Qualcomm modem chips. Now, it's a strange twist of fate, but I think it was 2019, when Apple announced it was no longer using Intel for its desktop or laptop chips, Intel actually sold its wireless modem division to Apple for $1 billion at the time, because they had given up trying to compete against Qualcomm. And I think it's really instructive that it's taken Apple, 5 years, right, since that acquisition, to develop its own wireless chip to go into their phone. This just tells you the type of technological challenges that's needed to develop that kind of modem chip. It's such an important component of the phone, you don't want to mess it up, and so it's got to go through extensive testing. You can see here a behind the scenes look at what Apple does to test its chips, right? So that the wireless performance is preserved in all kinds of conditions, right? Whether it's weather, whether it's you in a crowded stadium with tens, thousands of people all trying to get cellular data at the same time, or if you're in a rural, remote area where maybe the data coverage is quite patchy. And if you think about it, your modem has to be able to, wherever it goes in the world, it has to latch on to the cellular provider, whether that's 3G, which is being phased out in many places, but 4G, maybe 5G. And so it has to do a lot of things, and it has to get it right. And so in this first C1 chip that went into the iPhone 16e, Apple has chosen, I think, a very smart thing to do, which is they've gone in with a probably low volume device first. to test it out, right? Make sure that everything works before it starts to expand. And in the meantime, it'll rely on Qualcomm, right? Continue to rely on Qualcomm for the vast majority of its devices. Now, let's think about this. I like to, when I see something, a new thing that's happening, I like to think in three levels, to figure out what's going on. That first level, right, or first level thinking, first order thinking, obviously with Apple moving into these wireless modems, it means that over time it won't need to pay Qualcomm, right? It saves money, it reduces costs, and it brings in that kind of efficiency. The second order thinking is, what does this mean looking forward in that immediate market? So it introduced the C1 chip into the phone, the 16E. So what does it mean for other phones? I think looking at the capabilities at the moment, the C1 chip, it doesn't really do that much more than what a Qualcomm chip does, but what it does do is it gives you that battery increase in battery performance. And this is really important if we think about Apple's phone roadmap. There's lots of rumors that it's going to release a very thin version of the iPhone in September. They're calling it the iPhone 17 Air. That's what the rumors say. And when you have a thin device, that means there's less space for battery, and battery life is going to take a hit. So a much more efficient modem will help squeeze more battery life out of that. And when you also have a thin phone, you think that can maybe open up the possibility of Apple going to the foldable phone segment. When you're having a foldable phone, obviously the thinness of both sides of the fold become really important because you're doubling it, right? So again, having a very power efficient modem will help squeeze out more battery life that way. And that's the second order thinking. I think if we really want to get insights, you have to go to the third order, which is, what does this mean for Apple beyond just the phone? Apple has other devices like their laptops, which have no cellular capability. They've never provided this ever, right? Does this open up the possibility of bringing in cellular capabilities to their Mac laptops? When you have your own in-house modem, wireless modem chip, you could then think, well, for a laptop that's been so reliant on Wi-Fi to have this high data upload, download, it could easily chew up your cellular data quota. So if you have your own wireless chip, does that help you prioritize what kind of data requests go up or down? So that may bring cellular to the Mac laptops for the first time. Apple also has its Apple Vision Pro headset, this AR, very expensive AR headsets that go for $3,500 US base, and you're very much tethered to your home. You need very good Wi-Fi to get most of the things working. And if we think about several years down the line, if Apple can reduce the form factors, change the form factor, reduce the weight, increase battery life, maybe you can go out, start using this when you're outside, whether or not it's in this current form factor or in like a smart glasses format. And again, if you're going out and you need that kind of cellular data, then the modem chip becomes so important, right? So that's where I think, if I'm looking at that third order thinking, that's where I think Apple's going to be headed. But let me know in your comments what you think, right? And yeah, have a good rest of the day.